Under the Nevada sun, the desert stretched endlessly, golden and silent, as if it had been keeping a secret for years. In Fallon, a small town where everyone thought they knew everyone, a shadow from 2006 lingered, one that refused to fade. On a cool July morning, 17-year-old Jasmine Rivera left her home for a summer shift at the local diner. She was full of laughter, dreams and plans that reached far beyond the dusty streets of her hometown. By 6:45 p.m. she hadn't returned. Her absence went unnoticed for only a few hours before her family realized something was terribly wrong. That day in 2006, Fallon's sense of safety fractured. Jasmine's disappearance triggered immediate concern. Her mother, Elena Rivera, called the diner, her voice trembling. A co-worker confirmed Jasmine had left as scheduled, but never arrived home. The local sheriff's office mobilized quickly. Search teams scoured nearby desert trails, abandoned warehouses and roadside areas where she might have been seen. Flyers with her photograph went up at every gas station, cafe and school. Friends and neighbors held candlelight vigils, hoping for a glimpse of her smiling face. But the days stretched into weeks, and the trail grew cold. Investigators faced an early struggle: lack of witnesses, minimal physical evidence, and conflicting reports. Several people claimed to see a young woman matching Jasmine's description near Highway 50 that evening, but timelines didn't align. A local man reported a suspicious blue pickup near the diner, but nothing concrete could be verified. The first month passed with mounting frustration. Forensic resources were limited in 2006, and DNA analysis could only process a small fraction of collected samples. Yet detectives meticulously preserved everything. A strand of hair found near a dumpster behind the diner, fingerprints on a diner menu, and even a small piece of fabric caught on a fence post. The community, once tightly knit, began to feel the weight of uncertainty. Parents drove their children everywhere. Shops installed additional security cameras. Fallon, where everyone once left doors unlocked, changed fundamentally. In private, Elena Rivera refused to accept defeat. She maintained Jasmine's room exactly as it had been, her journals stacked neatly on the desk, her favorite posters still on the walls. She would sit for hours, reading aloud entries from Jasmine's diary, remembering the ambitions and small joys of her daughter, keeping her memory alive even as the case went cold. Over the years, tips came and went, most leading nowhere. By 2010, law enforcement officially categorized the case as cold. Investigators reassessed the evidence, scanning databases for potential matches, but the technology of the time limited their progress. Fingerprints matched no records. The hair sample provided insufficient DNA. It seemed as if the desert itself had swallowed Jasmine without a trace. By 2018, the Nevada Cold Case Unit had been formed, bringing new hope to families long abandoned by time. With advanced DNA technology, including forensic genetic genealogy, investigators revisited Jasmine's case. Every preserved item was re-examined. The hair sample, once insufficient, now produced a usable DNA profile. The small piece of fabric from the fence post also held trace DNA that, when combined with the hair sample, pointed toward a man who had never been on law enforcement radar before. Detective Mia Sandoval led the modern investigation. She explained later, the key was patience and preservation. Evidence collected in 2006 might have seemed inconclusive then, but science advanced. It never forgets. It never lies. Sandoval and her team uploaded the DNA profile to genealogy databases, tracing distant relatives and building a family tree toward potential suspects. The process was painstaking, requiring months of cross-referencing records, public archives, and subtle connections. The breakthrough came in March 2019. The DNA pointed conclusively to a man living quietly in Fallon, David Mitchell, 44, a mechanic who had long been known in town for his quiet, unassuming demeanor. He was a familiar face at the local church, a volunteer for youth programs, and considered trustworthy by nearly everyone who interacted with him. The revelation stunned the community. A man so embedded in daily life could be connected to a crime that had haunted the town for over a decade. Mitchell was discreetly surveilled, and investigators collected additional DNA samples from discarded items, confirming the match. They approached him carefully, preparing for a confession that would finally provide closure to the Rivera family. On April 12, 2019, in the presence of Detective Sandoval and several officers, Mitchell agreed to speak. The confession, recorded and corroborated with existing evidence, detailed the events of that July evening in 2006. He admitted encountering Jasmine near the diner and attempting to coerce her into his vehicle. When she resisted, he acted violently, ultimately leading to her death. Mitchell confessed to concealing her body in a remote part of the desert, describing how he had returned multiple times to ensure it remained hidden. The level of detail matched the known evidence, including the location where the hair and fabric had been found. He expressed no remorse, though his acknowledgement provided investigators with the clarity they had sought for 13 years. For Elena Rivera and her family, the confession brought an overwhelming mix of grief and relief. Relief that they finally knew what happened, that the person responsible had been identified and would be held accountable. Grief for the loss that had remained unresolved for so long. In a private statement, Elena said, "We've waited 13 years to hear the truth. It doesn't bring Jasmine back, but it brings her peace, and for that, we are grateful." Mitchell's arrest prompted a nationwide conversation about the power of forensic genealogy and the importance of preserving evidence. Many cold cases, previously deemed unsolvable, were now re-examined with hope. The Fallon Police Department hosted public briefings to reassure the community that justice, though delayed, could be achieved. In the courtroom, Mitchell faced multiple charges, including first-degree murder and obstruction of justice. Prosecutors presented the confession alongside forensic evidence, photographs, and testimony from the Rivera family. The trial, though emotionally taxing, was methodical. Legal experts later noted that the combination of confession, preserved DNA evidence, and corroborating witness accounts created a robust case that left little room for defense. On July 3, 2019, the judge handed down a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Justice, long delayed, had finally arrived in Fallon. The community held memorial services for Jasmine, establishing a permanent garden at the site where search efforts had originally concentrated. The garden became a place of reflection and remembrance, with plaques recounting Jasmine's life, her dreams, and the perseverance of those who never gave up. The Nevada 2006 cold case stands as a testament to resilience, the resilience of law enforcement, the resilience of a grieving family, and the resilience of justice itself. Jasmine Rivera's story reminds communities that no matter how much time passes, evidence retains its voice, and truth can emerge when patience, technology, and dedication converge. This resolution sparked initiatives in other small towns, prompting local law enforcement agencies to revisit unsolved disappearances, examine preserved evidence, and engage with families to restore hope. Educational programs on safety, vigilance, and personal responsibility were integrated into schools, inspired by the lessons learned from Jasmine's case. Through it all, Fallon transformed. Once a town overshadowed by uncertainty, it became a community that recognized the fragility of trust, the importance of vigilance, and the enduring impact of perseverance. Families now spoke openly about past fears, reinforcing a culture of awareness and support. Jasmine's life, though tragically cut short, became a beacon for justice and community action. For law enforcement professionals, the case became a model of combining traditional investigative work with modern forensic science. Preserved evidence, once overlooked or deemed insignificant, proved to be invaluable. Detective Sandoval emphasized that meticulous documentation and careful handling of physical evidence could ultimately be the key to solving cases that seemed impossible. The story of Jasmine Rivera in Fallon, Nevada teaches a powerful lesson. Time may pass, but the pursuit of truth endures. Persistence, science, and community resolve converge to illuminate darkness, providing closure for victims' families and reaffirming faith in justice. Every small piece of evidence, every preserved clue, can ultimately reveal the hidden narrative and bring resolution to lives forever changed by tragedy. Even years later, the memory of Jasmine lives on in Fallon. Her family continues to honor her through annual gatherings, educational initiatives, and advocacy for missing persons. Law enforcement uses her case as a cornerstone for cold case training, demonstrating how confessions, coupled with modern forensic techniques, can finally bring resolution. The Nevada 2006 cold case, finally solved after 13 years, stands as a testament to the idea that no matter how long a mystery remains, the combination of perseverance, forensic innovation, and unwavering dedication can deliver justice. Jasmine Rivera's story, once a lingering shadow, now shines as a reminder that the truth, though delayed, never truly disappears. The days and weeks after Jasmine Rivera's disappearance in July 2006 were a haze of tension, uncertainty, and mounting frustration for the Fallon. Families checked their doors twice, neighbors questioned every unfamiliar car, and the local diner became a hub of whispered speculation. Investigators, however, understood that the first 48 hours were crucial, and every small lead had to be pursued with precision. The patrol officers who initially canvassed the desert edges near Highway 50 retraced steps dozens of times, recording every possible footprint, tire mark, and piece of debris that might provide a clue. In the humid, arid heat of the Nevada summer, even the faintest trace could vanish if overlooked. For Elena Rivera, the fear was suffocating. Days turned into nights with no word. Each phone call was met with hope, then crushing disappointment. She kept Jasmine's bedroom as it had been the morning she vanished. Her journals, once filled with teenage dreams, now became a lifeline for her mother, a voice of the daughter she couldn't see. The Rivera family held on to their belief that Jasmine was out there somewhere waiting to come home. Community vigils persisted, friends and neighbors lighting candles that flickered against the night wind, a silent promise to keep searching. The investigation initially followed conventional lines. Local and state police collaborated, pulling in officers from nearby counties. They interviewed classmates, co-workers, neighbors, and anyone who might have seen Jasmine on that fateful day. Witness statements were inconsistent, a reflection of human memory distorted by time and stress. Some recalled seeing a blue truck near the diner. Others thought they heard voices raised in argument. No one could confirm anything with absolute certainty. Every possible lead required patience and careful documentation. By 2007, the case had stagnated. The Nevada State Crime Lab had tested what it could, but the technology at the time limited their options. Forensic evidence collected at the scene, strands of hair, fingerprints, and trace fabrics, yielded nothing definitive. Detectives kept meticulous records, however, recognizing that science might eventually catch up. Each sample, each note, and every piece of evidence was catalogued and preserved, awaiting a time when tools could reveal their secrets. The Rivera family never stopped pushing. They worked with local media, giving interviews and holding press conferences to maintain public awareness. Posters of Jasmine remained in shop windows and on telephone poles, photographs of a smiling teenager who had not been seen since that evening. Community support was unwavering, yet as the years passed the despair grew heavier. Fallon was a town still familiar with the footprints of crime, yet it had never faced a mystery of this enduring and personal nature. The turning point came more than a decade later, in 2018, when the Nevada Cold Case Unit, newly equipped with cutting-edge forensic techniques, reopened Jasmine's file. Detective Mia Sandoval led the initiative, examining every preserved piece of evidence with fresh eyes and advanced tools. The hair sample, previously insufficient for analysis, now yielded a complete DNA profile. Forensic specialists applied massively parallel sequencing and advanced mitochondrial testing, techniques unavailable in 2006, uncovering traces of genetic material that were once thought to be too degraded to use. The new DNA profile was uploaded to commercial genealogy databases, a technique known as forensic genetic genealogy. This approach allowed investigators to search for familial matches rather than the suspect directly, constructing a network of potential relatives that could narrow the field. It was painstaking work, sifting through hundreds of possible connections, cross-referencing birth records, marriage certificates, and public data to trace the suspect's lineage. By early 2019, leads began to coalesce around a small number of families with ties to Fallon. Discreet surveillance and collection of discarded DNA samples from objects like coffee cups and cigarette butts enabled investigators to confirm the match. One man consistently emerged from the data: David Mitchell, a mechanic with a clean criminal record and a seemingly unremarkable life in Fallon. Mitchell had spent years quietly integrated into the town, volunteering for church events, helping organize youth activities, and maintaining a reputation as a friendly, helpful neighbor. The revelation stunned everyone involved. How could someone so familiar be responsible for a crime that had haunted the town for over a decade? In March 2019, detectives obtained a search and surveillance warrant. Mitchell's movements were carefully monitored, and investigators collected further genetic evidence from discarded items. The DNA from these samples confirmed the connection beyond any doubt. With the scientific case solidly in place, Detective Sandoval and her team prepared for the confrontation that would ultimately provide the Rivera family with closure. On April 12, 2019, Mitchell agreed to speak to law enforcement. His confession, while chilling, matched every piece of evidence collected since 2006. He admitted to encountering Jasmine near the diner, attempting to lure her into his vehicle. When she resisted, he acted violently, ultimately causing her death. He described the location where he had hidden her body in a remote desert area and admitted returning to ensure it remained concealed. The confession aligned with the previously collected hair and fabric evidence, giving investigators both verification and a roadmap to where Jasmine's remains could be recovered. For the Rivera family, hearing the truth was both devastating and relieving. The years of uncertainty, the torment of unanswered questions, and the heavy burden of hope were replaced with clarity. They finally knew what had happened to Jasmine, though the emotional impact was profound. Elena Rivera later reflected, "Knowing the truth doesn't erase the pain, but it allows us to grieve properly and honor Jasmine's memory with honesty." Mitchell's arrest sent shockwaves through Fallon. The quiet mechanic, a man many had trusted, was now identified as the perpetrator. Neighbors, friends, and even casual acquaintances grappled with disbelief and betrayal. Community meetings were held to discuss the implications and to reassure residents that law enforcement had the situation under control. Fallon, a town previously defined by calm familiarity, had been forced to confront the reality that appearances could be deceiving. The legal process moved swiftly. Prosecutors combined the confession, DNA evidence, and corroborating witness testimony to build a strong case. Mitchell faced multiple charges, including first-degree murder and obstruction of justice. The trial was a tense affair, drawing attention from across Nevada and beyond. Each day, the courtroom heard details of Jasmine's final hours, the painstaking investigation, and the resilience of a family that had refused to give up hope. During the trial, forensic experts detailed the advanced DNA techniques used to link Mitchell to the crime, explaining to the court how preserved evidence from 2006 finally revealed the truth. Investigators emphasized the importance of evidence preservation, showing how a strand of hair or a small piece of fabric, once overlooked, could become decisive decades later. The testimony underscored the remarkable intersection of science, patience, and investigative diligence. By July 2019, after careful deliberation, the court handed down a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Justice, long delayed, had finally arrived for Jasmine Rivera. The decision brought profound relief to her family, allowing them to begin the process of healing. Memorial services and public commemorations celebrated Jasmine's life, with a permanent garden established in Fallon, marking the area where early search efforts had concentrated. In the years following the resolution of the case, Fallon implemented programs designed to prevent similar tragedies, emphasizing community vigilance, personal safety, and rapid reporting of suspicious activity. Law enforcement agencies across the state used the case as a model for cold case resolution, demonstrating the power of forensic genealogy in combination with traditional investigative work. The story of Jasmine Rivera serves as a powerful reminder that even when justice is delayed, it can still prevail. Evidence, when properly preserved, can bridge the gap between past and present, giving voice to victims and resolution to families long left in uncertainty. Fallon, a town forever marked by Jasmine's disappearance, has transformed into a community that values vigilance, awareness, and the pursuit of truth. Detective Sandoval often reflects on the case as a defining moment in her career, highlighting the perseverance, scientific innovation, and dedication required to solve a crime that had remained unsolved for over a decade. Her words resonate in law enforcement circles. Time may pass, but evidence holds memory. Truth has a way of finding its voice, no matter how long we wait to hear it. For Elena Rivera and her family, the garden, the memorials, and the acknowledgement of Jasmine's story provide ongoing comfort. They continue to participate in advocacy for missing persons, sharing lessons learned, and promoting the importance of preserving evidence and never giving up hope. Jasmine's story, though tragic, has become a beacon of resilience, demonstrating that patience, science, and determination can ultimately expose the truth. The Nevada 2006 cold case, finally resolved through confession and forensic innovation, stands as a testament to the enduring power of justice. Every strand of hair, every preserved sample, and every detail carefully documented by investigators ensured that, even after 13 years, truth would prevail. Jasmine Rivera's legacy remains alive in Fallon, a story of loss, perseverance, and the eventual triumph of justice. The courtroom was hushed as the final pieces of the Nevada 2006 cold case fell into place. The trial of David Mitchell was more than just a legal proceeding. It was the culmination of over a decade of grief, uncertainty, and relentless investigation. Families who had followed the case for years gathered outside the courthouse holding candles and photographs of Jasmine Rivera. Inside, every seat was filled, and the gallery overflowed into auxiliary rooms, the air thick with anticipation and suppressed emotion. The prosecution meticulously walked the jury through the sequence of events leading up to Jasmine's disappearance, integrating both the original 2006 investigation and the breakthroughs achieved over a decade later. Detective Mia Sandoval's testimony highlighted the painstaking preservation of evidence and the revolutionary DNA techniques that had cracked the case. She explained how a single strand of hair, a cigarette butt found near the diner, and minute fibers from clothing had all combined to reveal a genetic profile that ultimately identified Mitchell. The audience listened intently, many struggling to comprehend how a seemingly ordinary man could harbor such a hidden darkness. The defense attempted to paint Mitchell as a helpful, respected member of the Fallon community, emphasizing his volunteer work, his reputation for kindness, and the absence of prior criminal behavior. They suggested that the DNA evidence could have been contaminated or misinterpreted, but forensic experts rebutted each claim with clarity and precision. They demonstrated how modern sequencing technologies and meticulous evidence handling eliminated any reasonable doubt about the validity of the DNA match. The jury absorbed every detail, recognizing the careful, methodical nature of both the investigation and the prosecution's case. During cross-examination, Detective Sandoval recounted the confession Mitchell had given once confronted with incontrovertible DNA evidence. He had admitted to luring Jasmine near the diner, the altercation that followed when she refused his offer, and the methodical concealment of her body in a remote desert area. This chilling admission provided the missing context for all the preserved evidence, the hairs, fibers, and other trace materials collected in 2006 now fit perfectly within the narrative of Mitchell's confession. Family members of Jasmine, including her mother Elena Rivera, were present for the proceedings. The emotional toll of reliving such harrowing details was apparent, but there was also a sense of relief, a recognition that the mystery that had overshadowed so many years was finally unraveling. For the first time in 13 years, they felt justice within reach. The knowledge of what had happened allowed them to mourn fully, without the gnawing uncertainty that had marked so many sleepless nights. Outside the courthouse, Fallon's streets were filled with reporters, cameras, and concerned residents. Many expressed disbelief that Mitchell, the quiet mechanic who had fixed cars, volunteered for local events, and maintained a congenial presence, could commit such a violent act. Neighbors questioned their own perceptions, struggling with the unsettling realization that appearances can deceive. Some were outraged, some were grieving, and others were simply processing the extraordinary nature of the case, how science, patience, and relentless human effort had finally unveiled a long-hidden truth. On the trial's penultimate day, the prosecution presented the final forensic analysis linking Mitchell to the crime scene. Soil samples from the desert site where Jasmine had been concealed matched soil traces preserved from her clothing. Advanced DNA testing confirmed not only Mitchell's involvement, but also corroborated the timeline he provided in his confession. Photographs and preserved evidence from 2006 were displayed, revealing the meticulous attention investigators had paid to detail, which ultimately allowed the scientific breakthrough to occur over a decade later. Mitchell's demeanor during testimony was calm but detached. There was no visible remorse, only a monotone acknowledgement of his actions. The stark contrast between his normal, friendly public persona and the sinister reality presented in court left many shaken. The courtroom's atmosphere was heavy, a mixture of validation, grief, and disbelief. Every piece of evidence, every testimony, every cross-examination question built toward a single, undeniable conclusion: David Mitchell was guilty. On July 25, 2019, the jury reached a verdict: guilty on all counts. The decision brought a wave of emotion that spilled beyond the walls of the courtroom. Elena Rivera wept openly, embraced by friends and family who had stood by her through the long, uncertain years. Relief, grief, and vindication intertwined, creating a complex tapestry of emotion that no words could fully capture. Jasmine Rivera's story, once suspended in uncertainty, now had a conclusive chapter. Sentencing followed shortly thereafter. The judge, speaking directly to Mitchell, addressed not only the crime, but the profound impact it had had on the Rivera family and the Fallon community. "You took from this family what can never be returned," she stated. For 13 years they lived with unanswered questions, their lives shadowed by fear and uncertainty. Your actions will not be forgotten, and justice will be served to honor the life that was taken from them. Mitchell was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, ensuring that he would never again harm another individual. For the Rivera family, the legal closure was only one aspect of their journey. The years of uncertainty, of community vigil and personal anguish, had left deep emotional scars. They sought healing through advocacy, speaking publicly about Jasmine's case, the importance of evidence preservation, and the revolutionary role of forensic genetic genealogy. Their efforts extended beyond personal healing, aiming to prevent other families from experiencing prolonged uncertainty and injustice. Fallon, once quietly shaken by Jasmine's disappearance, began to recover. The garden established in her memory became a focal point for community gatherings, educational events, and memorial services. Students participated in programs to understand the importance of forensic science, community vigilance, and the courage required to pursue justice. Jasmine Rivera's story became both a cautionary tale and an inspiration, demonstrating the enduring power of persistence, science, and collective responsibility. The Nevada State Cold Case Unit continued to expand, using the Rivera investigation as a model for other long-unsolved cases. Investigators were trained in preserving evidence meticulously, in utilizing emerging DNA techniques, and in approaching cases with the patience and dedication required to bridge gaps of decades. Detective Mia Sandoval, reflecting on the case, emphasized the lessons learned. Every piece of evidence, no matter how small, has the potential to tell a story. Justice is never truly lost if we maintain faith in science, diligence, and the unwavering pursuit of truth. Years later, Elena Rivera continued to advocate for missing persons and cold case investigations, sharing Jasmine's story as a testament to perseverance and the eventual triumph of truth. The garden in Fallon served as a living memorial, where families of other missing persons could find solace, students could learn, and the community could reflect on both the fragility of life and the resilience of justice. Jasmine Rivera's legacy lives on in Fallon. Her name, once whispered with uncertainty and fear, is now spoken with reverence, remembrance, and hope. The resolution of her case proved that even after years of silence, science can illuminate truth, persistence can yield answers, and justice, though delayed, is never denied. Families, communities, and investigators alike were reminded that vigilance, care, and compassion can eventually bridge the gap between tragedy and resolution. This resolution marked the end of one chapter, but also the beginning of a renewed commitment to truth, justice, and remembrance. Fallon, Nevada will forever remember Jasmine Rivera, not just as a victim, but as a symbol of resilience, a catalyst for innovation in cold case resolution, and a testament to the enduring power of human determination. Every investigation that follows now carries a piece of her story, reminding the world that no mystery remains unsolved when the